Hi, 7th graders. Welcome back. We're on lesson 4.1, which starts on page 190 in your textbook. The learning targets are expressing ratios in simplest form and calculating unit rates. So a ratio is a comparison of two numbers or quantities by division. So an example, if an orange paint contains 2 drops of yellow paint and 4 drops of red paint, we can write the ratio a few different ways. We can write it as 2 to 4, meaning 2 drops of yellow to 4 drops of red. We can write it as we would say this as 2 drops of yellow to 4 drops of red, but we would write it a little bit differently. Or we can write it as a fraction, 2/4, 2 drops of yellow out of 4 drops of red. So for every 4 drops of red, there's 2 drops of yellow. Okay, so if we want to write ratios in simplest form, if we have 3 nonfiction books out of 12 books, if it says out of, we know that that's going to tell us that we want to write it as a fraction. So I would write it as 3 out of 12, because there's 3 nonfiction books out of 12 books. And then we want to simplify it. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that tells us that 1/4 of the books are nonfiction, or 1 out of 4 books is a nonfiction book. If we have 1 shark book out of 3 nonfiction books, 1 shark book out of 3 nonfiction books. So for every 3 nonfiction books, there's 1 shark book. Simplest form is 1/3, so we can't simplify it any further. Shark books to all books, we want to compare. And we're still going to write it as a fraction because we want to write it in simplest form. So there's how many shark books? 1 shark book. And all books is 12 books. 1/12, which is in simplest form, so that tells us out of all 12 books, there's 1 shark book. Okay, for 20 minutes of exercise to 1 hour of studying. We're comparing minutes to hour. So if we write 20 over 1, that's not going to tell us very much because 20 over 1 simplified is 20, and so that would tell us that really wouldn't help us simplify the problem. So that is not how we would write it. Instead, we would go 20 minutes, and then we're going to change hour to minutes. So instead of writing 1 hour, we're going to write 60 minutes. And then we're going to simplify. 20 and 60 both go into, or 20 goes into both 20 and 60. So 20 divided by 20 is 1. 60 divided by 20 is 3. So that tells us that so for every 3 minutes of studying, you will do 1 minute of exercise, or 1/3 of the time would be spent exercising, or 1/3 of an hour would be spent exercising. Okay, so pause me and try to do A and B, and then check back to check your answers. So if you have 16 pepperoni pizzas out of 24 pizzas, I would write it then as 16 pepperoni out of 24 total. Simplify. 16 and 24 both can be divided by 8. So 16 divided by 8 is 2. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So that tells us that 2/3 of the pizzas are pepperoni, or 2 out of 3 pizzas would be pepperoni. Okay, 8 ounces of butter, so we have 8 ounces to 1 pound. I'm going to change pound to ounces. 1 pound is the same as 16 ounces. So now I'm going to simplify. 8/16 equals 1/2, because you can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 8, and you get 1/2. So that tells us that for every pound of flour, or it tells us that there's half the amount of butter as there is flour. Okay, so a rate is a ratio, but it's comparing quantities with different types of units. So ratios, if you notice, are comparing the same units: books to books, minutes to minutes, pizzas to pizzas, ounces to ounces. Okay, so a rate is comparing, for example, if it's $5 for 2 pounds, it's comparing money to weight. $5 for 2 pounds. Or distance to time. 130 miles in 2 hours. But when a rate is simplified, so it has a denominator of 1, it's called a unit rate, which means that if we figure out how much it would cost for 1 pound, or how many miles you traveled in 1 hour, that would be the unit rate. So the unit rate is when the denominator is 1, or it's however much it is for 1 pound or hour or whatever the unit is. So if Lloyd worked one Saturday for 6 hours and earned $40, what was his average rate of pay in dollars per hour? One Saturday is crossed off because that's irrelevant. So he worked 6 hours and earned $40. So I'm going to write this as a ratio, but it's also going to now be a rate. So $40 over 6 hours. So when you're writing rates, you need to make sure that you have the correct labels. So we have $40 out of 6 hours. To find the unit rate, because we're asked what is his average rate of pay in dollars per hour. So that means for 1 hour. That means we're looking for the unit rate. To find the unit rate, the denominator has to be 1. So we have to change it. So this is 1 hour. Well, I know that 6 divided by 6 equals 1. So 40 divided by 6. So we have to do the same that we do to the denominator. 40 divided by 6 equals $6.67 for 1 hour. So then we can rewrite this as $6.67 per, my slash means per hour. Okay, or you could write it out word for word, $6.67, so $6.67 per hour. So let's do another one together. 24 tickets for 8 rides. So I'm going to use my labels because it's really important to use labels. I have 24 tickets per, or for, 8 rides. So for 8 rides, we need 24 tickets. We want to know what the unit rate is. The unit rate tells us, well, how much would it be for 1 ride? Denominator on the bottom. So 1 ride. 8 divided by 8 equals 1. 24 divided by 8 equals 3. 3 tickets for 1 ride. So I can rewrite that as 3 tickets, which I'm abbreviating, per ride. Okay? 4 inches of rain in 5 hours. Pause me and try to do this on your own. So we write it as 4 inches per 5 hours. So our unit rate is how many inches per hour. And the way that we figure out which one we put in the numerator and which one we put in the denominator, well, it tells us that we're told that it's per 5 hours, even though the words per aren't in there, but 4 inches of rain for every 5 hours. So that's how we know that that's going to be our denominator, and then we want to figure out the unit rate based on hours. Just like 24 tickets for 8 rides. So for 8 rides is 24 tickets. That means that we want to figure out how many for 1 ride. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 4 divided by 5 is 0.8. Another way that you can do this is, which I'm sure you've noticed by now, is you're really just taking the numerator and dividing it by the denominator. So 4 divided by 5, we get 0.8. So then we need to rewrite it with our label because we have to remember to make sure to label correctly. So 0.8 inches per hour. So it means for every hour that it rained, they got 0.8 inches. Okay, if you need to go back and reread the chapter or re-watch anything, feel free. Otherwise, go on to NICU and take the 4-1 NICU quiz.